Welcome to another Tradesmen Talk Tuesday. How you doing, Wilson?
Doing well, man. How are you?
Doing good. It's been a little bit of a holiday season. Got to spend some time with the family. Got to take a little bit of a mental break, and I'm ready to get back to work. Ready to start the new year being super productive and attacking the goals. What about you, man? How's it been the last week?
It's been really good, man. We've been working on obviously redoing a lot of the stuff for Cabinet Startup and for the podcast, just really working to improve one the quality of what we're doing, but also our reach. Obviously, we
Yep.
set out a goal to change a lot of lives, and a big part of that is helping get in front of those people. So, um, having set those goals back in December, it's helped a lot because, sometimes on days and you're like, man, I've done so much. What needs to happen next? Having a
Right.
very clear expectation, it goes a long way.
Yeah, I hear you. I have to give my own expectations a thought or reevaluation. I'm, as you know already, I'm traveling right now. I'm
Yep.
actually in my mobile office, we'll call it mobile studio. So doing a little bit of road tripping, and so expectations around timing and scheduling have to evolve a little bit, especially as I'm going through different time zones and having to deal with a little bit of a different daily routine.
Yep.
um, but going to be still attacking the new year with expectations of being productive, and all the stuff you've been doing with Cabinet Startup is going to help us, build a good foundation for the next year too.
Well, that's kind of a really interesting thing because I think a lot of times we have, what's the phrase? You can plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather.
Yeah.
A lot of times we have expectations for what's going to happen in our day or what's going to happen in our week, and outside forces change it. Or like I'll make plans sometimes when I'm traveling. Like, yeah, I'm definitely going to be here at this time for this meeting, and sometimes traveling makes that hard.
Right. Yeah.
How do you typically deal with that?
Well, I am doing a little bit of learn as I go. Um, but starting with the calendar is the first thing I use. The first intention is to just have everything laid out and then create a plan. And as that plan may or may not unfold the way I'm expecting, then, communication is what can help with that.
Yeah.
But this is my first week on the road. So working on developing a new daily routine as far as wake up time, sleep time, and things like that. So I don't expect to change a whole lot of the volume of results that I'm expected to produce, but
Right.
just change my day-to-day routine a little bit. But still use the calendar, still use a lot of the same tools, just reprioritizing and making sure I'm consistent with everything.
Yeah. Well, it's a good adjustment. I think one of the first steps is recognizing and accepting, okay, things aren't going the way I want.
Yeah.
And kind of being honest with yourself and going, okay, cool, this maybe isn't happening the exact way I thought, but recognizing, acknowledging that, and then working on a plan to deal with it, as opposed to, some people just creatively avoid the reality.
Hmm. Yeah, honestly is crucial. A lot of people can experience challenge around being honest with themselves, with other people. You talk about expectations at the beginning of the episode. We often have a desire to meet expectations, and sometimes that can manipulate the level of honesty that we project to ourselves and other people, because we want to maintain those expectations that are revolving around the same situation that may not be playing out the way you planned. But that's more or less the topic of our episode today is honesty.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit a week or so ago about setting goals and creating the vision for the next year and breaking that down into a plan. Well, as your days and weeks and months unfold, having a level of honesty that gives you that necessary feedback and that can help you adapt and recourse if needed to stay on course of achieving your goals that you establish at the beginning of the year. Honesty can be something that's challenging to be consistent with, but what are your thoughts on ways that people might be able to to work on their honesty around themselves and other people?
Um, well, I mean, I think the first step is recognizing how honesty is categorized, because in my experience, when most people think of honesty, they're like, well, yeah, I'm telling the truth to other people, right? And even then, there's wide ranges of what people consider honest, right?
Right.
The first step is like honesty and integrity really go hand in hand, and like the core focus of honesty has to be, okay, not only am I going to be honest with other people, but recognizing that the concept of honesty is going to vastly impact you and how you go about your everyday life. And so I think reframing that concept and going, okay, cool, like I think I'm an honest person, but am I honest with me, and actually taking time to stop and check, like, am I honestly doing the things that I said I was going to do for me? Because it's very easy for us to break agreements with ourselves. And probably this time of year more than any other, we were just kind of laughing, like it's almost impossible to go to the gym right now, because
It's easy not to.
it's hard to go to the gym right now because there's actually a million people in there.
Yeah.
January.
Oh, okay.
January 5th. Yeah.
Resolutions.
January 5th through January 30th is when you go to the gym and you wait for other people to get off their phones and get off the machine so that you can actually work out, because they had to check a box. But that commitment they made with themselves, when you go back and check on that same gym in March, a third of the people are there.
Yeah, it's a little quieter.
It's way, way quieter. And so, understanding like the commitment that you make to yourself, and then honestly being able to go look at that and go, hey, did I keep my commitments, is huge. Because little things like, hey, I started this New Year's resolution, but I didn't keep it. That kind of stuff we tend to let go, right? It's not a big deal. I didn't actually hurt anybody through that dishonesty. But we as creatures form habits. And when we form the habit of letting ourselves down on little things, it becomes much easier to let ourselves down on big things.
For sure. And that's where having some layers of accountability can help, because sometimes we aren't aware of when we're letting things slide, or when we allow a reason or excuse to get in the way of why we didn't do something we planned or said we were going to do. Sometimes it's easy not to consider it as dishonesty. It's just inconvenience or coincidence that what you wanted to do didn't work out. We blame maybe external reasons or forces to the choices that we make or don't make. So honesty can look like just being consistent with what you say you're going to do. And when we are kind of pairing expectations with the word honesty, sometimes as we become more honest with ourselves, the expectations can change, where we may have this plan of doing X amount, where the circumstances may qualify more of a realistic approach, and knowing what is or isn't realistic can help you set better expectations. And a part of knowing that is just knowing yourself. And if you've never gone to the gym before, then telling yourself that you're going to go to the gym every single day doesn't become realistic, and over time doesn't become honest or accurate, because the results don't line up with the commitment that you made. And so it's, when we say honesty, it's not necessarily from a moral sense. It's more of just being realistic with yourself, and then transitioning that mentality over to how you communicate with other people. Being honest, in other words, being realistic with what you commit to, or what you make as a promise or set expectations for other people.
Well, it's interesting, kind of piggybacking off what you just said there. When you look at the idea of honesty about, whether or not you're doing things you're supposed to do, or where you're at, I think one of the reasons that we as people, and I'm as guilty of this as anybody else, right? We commit to something, we don't actually do it, and then we kind of disillusion ourselves. We're like, oh no, I mean, I've been working really hard this week.
Sure.
And one of my favorite examples, like in college, favorite thing in the world to do when I had an exam coming up, my room was spotless. And I'd be like, yeah, man, I worked all week. I didn't do anything related to school, but I was definitely working. But if you ask me, like, honestly, I did work, and it was
Sure.
self-delusionment at best.
Right.
But the reason that happens is because sometimes when we don't get something done, we thought we were going to get done, right? And there are external factors like, well, we're afraid of being honest with ourselves because of the blame, right? It's like, well, I didn't get it done. And, it was all this other thing, but, I'm still a hard worker. I still did all this stuff. And we start making excuses. But being honest with yourself doesn't necessarily have to come with a lot of blame. It doesn't necessarily have to come with a lot of guilt. It doesn't have to come with a lot of shame.
Right.
And a lot of times those things don't actually help you move forward. Like if your business is only doing $50,000 a year and you expect it to be doing 100,000 at the end of the year, a lot of people don't want to look at all the things they did wrong because that's going to make them the bad guy and they're going to have to feel bad about it.
Right.
When in reality, you're there, right? Choosing to feel bad about it or not to feel bad about it is kind of irrelevant. And it's kind of like
distracting.
It's like worrying, right? When you're worrying about something that you can't solve, you're just punishing yourself twice.
Right. Honesty is so much more binary than we allow it to be.
Yeah.
Because when you're trying to make judgment on what you did or didn't do, or vice versa with someone else, you're just, as I mentioned, you're distracting yourself from being honest. It's either this happened or it didn't happen. Either you got the result or you didn't get the result. It's A or B, and that's it. And if you try to put in a because of this or because of that, then you're only detracting attention away from the actual result that you're evaluating.
Yep.
If you're being honest with yourself and other people, it's being very clear and very concise. It doesn't leave room for judgment. It's not a subjective thing. It's just yes or no.
Yep. And
A or B.
It shouldn't be. Taking the judgment out of it, I think allows you to then say, okay, cool. I can start to look at reasons, right? If it's not,
Yep.
Hey, I'm good or bad because of this, it removes, I think, a lot of the resistance that we have there. And I love honesty should be pretty binary, not just with yourself, but I think with other people as well. Now everybody's got their different reasons for it. I believe in being honest all the time. So much so that it bothers people because, dude, I don't have the memory to lie. I don't know how people get away with it.
Right.
Like I have way too many conversations, way too many people, way too many places to try and track all that.
Right.
And unless you have a PR team behind you to go fix up those mistakes, which I don't, it's just not worth the risk. I would rather just say, hey, this is the deal. This is what it is. But people pick up on that, right? When you're honest, I think people would rather have a bad truth laid to them honestly than to have a falsehood given to them and then find out after the fact. I mean, you want to talk about something that will kill your business, customers catch you lying. It's a no-go.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
It's not a good look. And it doesn't make your life easier.
100%. And, honesty it's either 0 or 100. You either did it or you didn't. And you can try to split hairs and try to consider partial truths, but I find those to be very much distractions and become quickly excuses as well. And, if you say, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week, and someone says, did you go to the gym all week? And you say, yes, even though you only went 4 days out of the 5 days. Yes, you went to the gym throughout the week, but you didn't go every single day, and rarely do the questions become that little of a big deal, that lighthearted.
Sure.
When we're talking about your business and the people that work in it, it's usually they're heavier decisions that you're having to make or heavier commitments. Hopefully, if you are making goals and objectives for yourself and you're evaluating the results, those are things that can impact your business, therefore impact the lives of the ones who choose to work with you. And so even if it's a small decision, it could be very impactful. And so it's insanely important to be honest with yourself and other people. And so as we talk about honesty with other people, what might that look like could be an easy question. Oftentimes it starts off with the expectations that you set with your new hires. If you're going to be honest with them, that might mean that you're going into great depth to describe the day-to-day job, really trying to emphasize what emotions they might experience, what tasks they're having to do every day,
Yep.
what goals you're going to be setting for them, and even more important, what opportunities exist. Be extremely honest about what things might look like if they work very hard, if they stay diligent and consistent with the things that you give them to do. Be honest and clear about the opportunity.
Yep. Well, honesty is it's a long play, right? Honesty is
Yeah.
always the long game. Because I have seen and have lots of examples. I have one friend in particular I can think of that has probably had 4 or 5 different roles in the last 2 or 3 years. And one of the things that consistently happens is he, ends up trying to work with people that are flashy and making huge promises. And he goes and works there for a couple months, and turns out it's not anything what they promised. And he's an incredibly talented guy. And sure enough, he quits and he leaves. And now that company, right, has to go through all the trouble of trying to rehire and retrain new people, right?
Yeah.
He now does not like that company and has nothing positive to say about him. So anytime anybody asks, it's going to be negative. And it's wild, because when people want to recruit, or I see this sometimes with customers, especially in the trades. I was thinking of an example that happened not that long ago. Supply lines are tough right now.
Yep.
It just is what it is. And so, you something happens, you order enough paint, but the wrong can comes in, right? The job's already been held up, and the customer like, well, what's going on? There are people who are like, well, what should I tell them?
That's a great point. Sometimes it could be, easy to develop a habit of dishonesty if you start to feel like it helps the customer or improves the experience. Talk more on that if that's what you had in mind.
Well, I think the funny thing about it is they're like, people's first inclination is tell the customer like, oh, don't worry, we're working on it. Right. That's always the line. It's like, hey, we're working on it. But you may not be working on it. If you're not working on it, it's supply chain, just say, hey, look, this is what happened. It's real. I'm really sorry. We had that experience a lot with, solar. There's a lot of crews working on solar. We had one time, actually phenomenal experience. I really liked this family. They were great people. But one of our installers drilled a hole in the roof and didn't seal it back up properly.
Okay.
Yeah. So on a scale like, 1 to 10, that was like a 12 screw up. You know what I mean? Because then you've got damage coming all through. It actually ended up going through their living room. It destroyed their like $3,000 TV. I mean, it was
of course.
So you can imagine when we got this call, they were livid, right?
Right.
And working in that industry, worked a lot of people, a lot of different places. There are lots of companies be like, no, that wasn't from us. We checked where it was stalled in. There's no, that water could have come from us. That's a different leak. And that kind of stuff happens all the time. Whereas instead you just go, hey, look, we're really sorry. There was a mistake. We don't know what happened. We're going to get in there. We're going to fix it. We replaced their TV. They gave us referrals.
Nice.
Right. They went from being incredibly mad, and rightfully so, it was a nice TV, to actually giving referrals. And the easy thing to do would have been to be like, hey, sorry, that's not our fault, or, we're really not sure, or whatever. But the honesty always comes in. And same thing with your customers, right? You tell them the truth. You take the heat on the front end, but at the end, when it's time to ask for a review, if you were direct with them, you're straightforward with them, you kept them engaged, especially with the reputation of other contractors. People know how many contractors are willing to just spin the truth a little bit. If they find somebody that's honest, they will refer you. They will share you with their friends.
Right. And it's so much so that a lot of assumption will come from these homeowners, because they already have experienced contractors in the past that ended up not telling the truth and was not leaning on honesty when they were updating the homeowners on a situation. And so be prepared. And if you're an existing tradesperson, you probably have already experienced a situation not panning out the way you planned, and you having to update the homeowner, and the homeowner doesn't believe you.
Yep.
Because they are used to other contractors not being honest. And so it can be a little bit hesitant to communicate clearly and upfront with these homeowners, because you might have preconceived notions or beliefs that they're not going to believe you, or they're going to react a certain way, and you're kind of avoiding that. And so you don't start off with honesty when you're updating the customer. But I can tell you, it's a lot better to, when you're dealing with a less than ideal situation, it's a lot better to approach it as reporting to the homeowner with a little bit of empathy. And so you want to acknowledge the situation that they're in, acknowledge the emotion, whether it's frustration, sadness, or, whatever the negative situation is, you want to acknowledge it and try to present to you understanding what the homeowner is going through. But other than that, you're really reporting on what's going on. And that might be things that you as the business owner are going to do, or someone on your team is going to do. And that's often what they want to hear, is what you're going to do about it. They want you to hear them first. They want to understand, like they say, people don't care what you know till they know how much you care. So you do want to acknowledge what they're going through, but then they want to hear about what you're going to do about it. And so if it's a situation that you cannot control, do not create a plan that relies on things that you cannot control.
Yeah.
And so many times you'll have contractors, oh, Miss Smith, we didn't get the paint in time, but I'm being told we're going to have it by Friday. So, I'll see you on Friday, and we're going to definitely get this done for you before the weekend. I promise. Well, a lot of times, even though that sounds really good and it gets the homeowner saying, thank you, Mr. Bob, I appreciate it, and they're happy with you for a moment, when Friday comes around and you don't have the paint and you can't fulfill the promises that you made, Miss Smith is going to be super mad at you again. And even more so because now you're surprising her twice.
Yeah, it gets worse each time.
You're not right. And if you set a promise that you can't even control the outcome of, you're a lot of times going to set yourself up for failure, and you're going to piss the customer off for a second time, or, whatever round you're on. Yep. And so if you can't control the situation, you want to be very honest about that. Miss Smith, as you know, we have our paint manufactured at a facility outside of the city. And I assure you, they communicated to us we would have it by Friday, but they're now telling us that they don't have the clips to ship the paint. And so I'm not going to be able to get the paint by Friday like they had originally told me. And so I felt it best for me to update you with the information that I just now received. Of course, it wouldn't do us any service to make any promises. Other than that, I will continue to update you as I receive more information. But I want to make it very clear, we are doing whatever we can to get this project done as soon as we can. So try to reemphasize what their priority is at the end, but you want to make everything 100% honest and factual, including some of the things they may not want to hear, which is, Miss Smith, I can't control when we get the paint, unfortunately, but we're going to get the job done as soon as we can.
Well, and it's funny, man, you can tell that you've had so many of these conversations, which is, it's a good thing. But one of the things you did right there that I hope people listening will take away from it, is you just found out and you told them, right? And this is, I think, something people miss about honesty, at least in the exchange between a business owner and a homeowner, is if the homeowner feels like you're being proactive and keeping them up to date, they handle bad news so much better than if they have to call you to get the bad news. Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing to notice. But when you start dealing with more and more projects, and this is something I think would be really good, I'd love to hear your insights on. One of the challenges people have, and I've heard contractors say, is, well, I'm not the problem, I'm honest, it's my customers and my workers. So, well, that may be true, but for the most part, I have a belief that humans are primarily good. I mean, there's some bad apples out there, but more people are good than not. Where we see people screw up is opportunity, right? When they have opportunities to do things. Most people would never steal $20 from you, but if they find $20 on the ground, they might put it in their pocket without saying anything.
Sure.
Right. And so one of the things that I know you've done an incredible job of in your business is actually creating systems that help keep people honest, right? because
Yep.
sometimes homeowners may be dishonest with what happens if they see an opportunity to take advantage of it. Sometimes your, employees may be dishonest if they see an opportunity to take advantage of it. But it doesn't have to be that way. So what are your thoughts on creating systems that actually help ensure honesty by creating transparency for everybody?
Yeah. I can imagine a few different areas of the business where we can have a system around making it a standard process. And so when it comes, we kind of broke today's talk into three different categories, honest with yourself, honest with your team, and honest with your customers. When it comes to being honest with yourself, calendars are a great way to do that, especially when you're breaking down your goals into daily, weekly, or monthly tasks. A lot of people like to use a journal. And so you might have some journaling practice that gives you an opportunity to be very clear with what you want and don't want out of your life, and then holding yourself accountable in a way of being able to reflect back on that. Um, Being honest with your team members, I do that by when I hire them, I have a whole onboarding packet where it gives them the current pay agreement, based off of them entering the job. It also lays out the next couple steps on where they can evolve and earn more money in exchange for more responsibility, as well as the expectations that I set for whatever I'm training them on. So if I'm training technicians who are actively doing the refinishing, then it's a whole training process that's typed out and gives them an ability to study it. It also has a broken down day by day itinerary or schedule for the average project. And even those days are broken down into time estimations for each step throughout the day. And so I try to create honesty by giving them clear expectations so that when it does come time to evaluate their performance or um, discuss a certain challenge, we have something to reference
Yep.
rather than just relying on memory or interpretation. As you talked about at the beginning of the talk, honesty can sometimes change and interpretations of honesty can change. And so if you're relying on interpretation or memory, I
Memory is
guarantee
useless.
you honesty will not be the same over any period of time, and especially over several different people. And so having everything on paper is really going to help being honest with your team members. And then similarly with your customers, we of course have an agreement when we are hired, but we also give them additional documentation through email, and even so we have a forms that they sign when we're signing them up to work with us. We then email them information, but and then all my technicians have what's I call the introduction letter, and so they give that to the homeowners, which go over common FAQs that they may have forgotten about. It just gives them another opportunity to review the expectations that we're setting, and then common questions and answers. And then we also use a work order. And so all of these different things align to create transparency with expectations, and as well as support honesty.
Yeah. I think I think that's a really huge thing because we might be able to, and again, we're going to believe that we trust ourselves to be honest. You're going to have customers out there that think that you're being totally dishonest when you are honest. And you'll see them change their mind when you show them the original paperwork. And the crazy thing
Yeah.
is, I have been in that situation where I am very confident they didn't dislike me, right? They weren't trying to get something from me for the sake of
Right.
doing it. They actually, in their mind, believed that that's what they were owed, and they were honestly pursuing what they thought was the agreement. And had we not had that little piece of paper, somebody would have come out very unhappy.
Right.
And historically, me, right? Because they can go leave bad reviews, they can go,
Yeah. They
they
have a
can go,
lot of leverage.
they have a lot of leverage. And so it's good to create that. We have project management systems that we use. Same
Yep.
thing. Every single idea piece is tracked. I mean, in the Austin location, we've gotten to the point like we take pictures of all the cabinets both opened and closed to make sure that the doors are put on the right way, because we had one customer be really upset about it. And there's no way
Yeah.
the doors.
Homeowners do not inspect their cabinets
No,
before they hire us. Typically, it's up
no.
to us to inspect for pre-existing damage, because often, they feel with their whole heart that they are being honest when they blame you for that dent on the stainless steel refrigerator.
Yep.
But if you have a before picture, you can magically change their interpretation of honesty by implementing a system that requires you to take pre-existing pictures or before pictures so that you can zoom in and say, look, Miss Smith, that dent was there before we started. And if you're doing that in your sales appointments, you could even show that that was there before your guys even showed up.
Maybe the idea of today's topic should not have been honesty, but how to turn honesty into objectivity.
Yeah, that could be a whole conversation for sure.
Yeah, because I mean that's really what it boils down to.
It like quickly turns into philosophy too. You know, determining honesty can be a huge determination or outcome of the way you look at life.
Yes.
If you're blaming other people or other things more often, your version of honesty won't include yourself very much.
True. Well, and I think maybe we do one on that, because reality is a lot of successful business people are successful because they have a philosophy, and that guiding trend helps make a lot of those decisions. But being objective in how you present what you're doing with your team, being objective with the customers and their expectations, and being objective with yourself and your performance. In a lot of ways, I think that's exactly it. Because when I'm talking about honesty, that's really what I mean. Like being objective, right? Black and white.
Right.
Was it?
Yeah, that could be
true,
a huge
was it
one.
not?
Because I could be honest and see things how it's your fault, and I can bring up things that are honest and true potentially. But I could also choose to do the same thing about me around the same situation. I can also see how it's my fault and use honest and true things to describe that. So honesty really is an outflow of your perspective, and so it could get pretty deep. We should maybe expand on that more often on probably another call, because we got cabinet startup call coming up soon.
Yeah, live training soon. Well, cool, man. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation. This is I think there's some valuable stuff in here for anybody listening, especially to harp on one thing, what Stephen said about letting the customer know immediately. Same thing with everybody in your life. If you're honest and you're proactive about that honesty, it will go much further, yourself included. If you're honest with yourself that you're not doing what you're supposed to do, if you're proactive about it, you'll save yourself 6 months of not doing what you were supposed to do. It's an amazing process. You'll
give yourself more time to develop. Your starting line can start a lot sooner if you're honest to yourself, and then you're going to grow a much better team if you're honest with your guys and your team members, and you're going to have much happier customers if you maintain honesty with them. So all around. So I also hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. It was great talking with you as well, Wilson. We'll go ahead and wrap that up, and we'll see you guys on the next one.